A very good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for joining with us today for for an interesting discussion on the title on the topic where mind meets matter. I think on the onset itself, I would like to thank all of you for joining us, especially our guest speaker for the day, Dr. Ruan M. Jayatunga. I would like to introduce Dr. Ruan M. Jayatunga. Dr. Ruan Jayatunga received his MD from Vinicita National Medical University, Ukraine in 1993. He has served as a medical officer of mental health at the Ministry of Health in Sri Lanka, including roles as a medical officer of health and medical officer mental health focal point in Puttlam. As a commissioned officer in the Sri Lankan Army, Dr. Jayatunga worked at the Military Hospital Colombo, treating combatants with PTSD. He was one of the pioneers in studying the psychosocial effects of PTSD in Sri Lanka and has authored numerous books and research articles on the subject. Dr. Jayatunga has an extensive educational background, including studying child psychology at the Barnsley College, Great Britain, psychosocial rehabilitation at Humber College, Canada. He has received 4 years of psychiatric training under Dr. Neil J. Fernando, a consultant psychiatrist, and he has undergone residential training in EMDR in Philadelphia, USA, under Dr. Susan Rogers. Moreover, he has also trained in CBT under Professor Alison J. Ouimet at the University of Ottawa, and has completed a program in meditation and neuroscience with Professor Robert McFadden at the University of Toronto. He has also been trained in addiction psychology by Dr. Ivan Perusco, an addiction consultant in Toronto, Canada, and has completed the opioid dependence treatment program at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Dr. Jayatunga has furthered his expertise in trauma-informed therapy at the Traumatology Institute in Canada and has completed training in managing alcohol problems at the University of Toronto. He holds a high honors diploma in social work from Seneca College and has degrees in psychology from York University of Canada and the Washburn University, USA. He has earned his PhD in psychology from the Salinas University, Italy. As a guest lecturer, Dr. Jayatunga has delivered lectures on war trauma and PTSD at the Washburn University, Kansas, York University, Canada, Coatesville VA Medical Center, Pennsylvania, and Harvard University, Massachusetts. He's a member of the International Scientific Committee of the Post-Traumatic Embitterment Disorder panel representing Canada. His research collaborations include work with Professor Dayal Somasundaram, Dr. Neil Fernando, Professor Rami Bau Khalil, Professor V. Rosno. Currently, he serves as a practicum and internship supervisor at the University of Buffalo, USA. Dr. Jayatunga, I am extremely honored that you have accepted our invitation. I think there is no better person to deliver this lecture on the interface of where mind meets matter, a biological, psychological view. The platform is yours to deliver the lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ransirini De Silva. I'm so honored and grateful for this opportunity, and it's a great pleasure. So today my lecture, Where Mind Meets Matter, a psychological view. So I have little technical issues, I think. Just give me 2 seconds to figure this out. Okay, I got it. So we know that the mind is not a tangible object. It's rather a concept, and there are various definitions. So so I can read a few definitions here. So the mind is what thinks, feels, perceives, imagines, remembers, and wills, encompassing the totality of mental phenomena. And the second one is mind is a complex of faculties involving perceiving, remembering, considering, evaluating, and deciding. So the third definition is the mind is answerable to totality of conscious and unconscious mental processes and activities. So what is matter? We all know that we came from the stars, we came from the universe. So we have our physical body, and we are all carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus when we talk about the physical sense. So human body is constituted of the physical substance known as matter. So, you know that in the universe, there's ordinary matter, dark matter, and dark energy. We have that chemical and physical composition. So mind over matter, an age-old question. It discusses the power of the mind to control and influence the body and the physical world. So what is mind-body dualism? Actually, we thought that there's an interconnection between mind and body. So mind and body dualism represents the metaphysical stance that mind and body are two distinct substances, each with a different essential nature. So the philosopher René Descartes argues that the nature of mind is completely different from that of the body. And according to Descartes, the human mind and body were completely separate entities. And he emphasizes the mind is utterly invisible, but mind and body work together like the sailor and the ship that are closely joined. So Descartes made a huge error for centuries. So his separation of the mind from the body was an error, and I think that affected the medical science big time. And I think still we can't escape from that notion. So Immanuel Kant believed that the mind is a complex set of abilities, rather functions. The mind, according to Kant, is capable of transforming raw data given to our senses into coherent and organized form. So Sigmund Freud developed a topographical model of the mind. I think you all know about the iceberg, the picture, the ego and superego. So however, Carl Jung was a little bit skeptical about Freud's notion, and he proposed the ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. So what is collective unconscious? You know that in every civilization, they have archetypes, they have totem animal. For instance, in Sri Lanka, in the Sinhalese nation, they have the lion, and the lion is common to many civilizations. And in the Hindu civilization, they have this chakra. And if you go to South America, the Inca and Maya civilizations also had this chakra, this circle. So even though these two civilizations did not have any interconnection, both shared some common symbols. So Jung argues that it's due to the collective unconscious, because it's like a grid, it's like an internet. We all share common thoughts and common ideas. So Noam Chomsky believed the connection between language and mind. Chomsky highlighted the linguistic contribution to the study of mind. And Jacques Lacan, the psychiatrist, he went further. He famously said the unconscious is structured like a language. And Lacan believed a psychiatric ailment like a schizophrenia, it's a language disorder. And he indicates that in schizophrenic patients, they have the neologism, they create their own words, and they are sort of stuck with word salad. So the cognitive psychologist Steven Pinker expressed that the human mind is naturally a selected system of organs of computation. So this gives sort of idea that human mind is like a computer. So some propose that human mind is like a Turing machine. You remember Alan Turing, who developed the first computer? So the mind is sort of a computer analyzing data which we get from the outside world. So this definition was given by my mentor, Professor James Alcock at York University. He says that mind is the subjective conscious awareness of the physical brain at work, not separate from the physical brain, but a reflection of it. So what is biopsychology? So biopsychology analyzes how the brain, neurotransmitters, and other aspects of our biology influence our behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. And when we consider the human mind, so mind is in some sense reflected in such occurrences as sensations, perceptions, emotions, memory, desires, various types of reasoning, motives, choices, traits of personality, and unconscious. So this word personality is very important because the mind is not like we have different personality types. So we are not similar to each other. We have all different types of mindsets that based on our environment, genes, our experiences, our education, etc. So you all know, as humans, we live in our own minds. Remember what Clint Eastwood said, you are a legend in your own mind. So chemicals do control the mind. Actually, Robert Louis Stevenson, he knew this this factor in the 18th century when he was writing his famous book, The Treasure Island. He was addicted to cocaine and he knew the influence of the chemicals, how it affected his mood, behavior, and thought process. So today we know chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, glutamate, norepinephrine influence on mood and behavior. We shouldn't forget human mind and the evolution, because human mind is a part of a human evolution that started 7 million years ago in the African savanna. So human mind developed over many centuries, and biology and environment affected the human mind. So we see the evolution of the mind, like it started with a single cell and turned into multiple cells, then the formation of nerve cells, aka a neuron. From the neuron, it came the nervous system. Then it formed the primitive brain. From primitive brain, we went into complex brain, and the formation of consciousness. So after that, still we don't know, because still we know that the evolution process is occurring and we going to get evolved. So what happens to our consciousness after we die? This question was back of my mind for years. And I asked from a lot of people, and eventually I got some concrete answers from two of my mentors, one Professor Guy Bernard from York University and Professor Carlo Fonseca. So both these intellectuals told me that there is no consciousness after we die. It's like the computer, it's like a hard disk and the software, and everything is gone once the biological death occurs. So this is still under speculation. I know we have people with different religious and cultural backgrounds. So still we debate, and I don't think even this is the final answer. So there must be different interpretations. So we know that mind is not a tangible object, but rather a process. It's an extended phenomenon. The mind extends into the environment and experiences. So what we experience and the environment that we live impact our mind and our thinking processes. So what is neuroplasticity? You know that the experience alters the brain, and The brain has the ability to change and adapt due to experience. So people with different traits and have different brain neuroplasticities. For instance, the taxi drivers in London, they have a certain type of brain plasticity, and the computer engineers, and it depends on whatever your practice. And once you start specializing in the activities, the brain, certain centers that are answerable for this particular function gets activated. And you can see the thickening of gray matter, the blood circulation is enhanced, etc. So what is the difference between, sorry, we have to go to the previous slide. Yeah, so what is the difference between brain and mind? So the brain is the provider of mind. So the brain is the organ of the mind, just as the lungs are the organs for respiration. And then comes the next question: what is intelligence? So basically, we know intelligence is our ability to adapt to a new environment, and it has several skills such as problem solving, understanding abstract concepts, and critical thinking. So when we think about human brain, it's a very complex organ. The human brain is largely interconnected. It controls all mental and physical functions. So when we consider the anatomy, the human mind contains about 100 billion neurons. There are as many as 100 trillion synaptic connections in the brain. So we know that human thought is controlled by the brain, and brain is an electrochemical organ using electromagnetic energy to function. So brain needs some energy. What is the energy? It's the electromagnetic energy that helps to function the brain. And we know that the brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and right hemispheres. The right hemisphere is known as the creative side of the brain, while the left hemisphere is the logical or analytical side of the brain. So we see the left brain is more logical, it's analytical, it's linear, verbal, and factual, whereas the right brain is more creative, intuitive, artistic, nonverbal, and emotional. So largest part of the brain is the cerebrum, which contains the cerebral cortex. The cerebrum controls the planning, memory, and sensory integration. Cerebral cortex is the outermost layer of the cerebral hemisphere, which is composed of gray matter. The cerebral cortex plays a key role in memory, attention, perception, cognition, awareness, thought, language, and consciousness. So with aging, there are numerous changes occur inside the brain, because with aging, we can see shrinking of the brain cortex, and the blood supply is being changed, and also the neurons die and become amyloid beta. So amyloid beta is typically associated with Alzheimer's disease. We know that with aging, our cognitive abilities go down. I can give one example from my own family. My mother is 93 years old, and she can recall many events. She vividly recalls many events that occurred 75, 80 years ago, but sometimes she can't remember what she had for breakfast or what she had for dinner, because the short-term memory is being affected. So with aging, people have a loss of memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities. So indeed, it's gonna affect their, interfere with their day-to-day lives. So neocortex is very important. It's the largest part of the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer of the cerebrum. The cortex involved in higher order brain functions such as sensory perception, cognition, generation of motor commands. This happen in the process of evolution. So what is the difference between Komodo dragon and us? You know that Komodo dragon, they eat their offspring, and whereas we don't eat our newborn because we have neocortex, and the Komodo dragons, they have a reptilian brain. So, neocortex is responsible for functions such as reasoning, problem solving, judgment, impulse. The brain has 4 lobes, and the frontal lobe is responsible for functions such as reasoning, problem solving, judgment, and impulse control. The parietal lobe involved in processing pain and touch and sensation. The temporal lobe is involved in auditory sensation. The occipital lobe is associated with interpreting visual stimuli and information. So among the other brain structures, the amygdala helps the body respond to emotions, memories, and fear. So we call the amygdala the center of the emotional memory. So we see in post-traumatic stress disorder, they have reduced volume of amygdala because these patients have intrusive memories, flashbacks. They constantly live in their fear-related thoughts, and they have hyperarousal. So their emotional center has a lot of it's subjected to a lot of changes. And when you do a PET scan and brain scans, you find reduced volume of amygdala in PTSD patients. And the hippocampus, which is vital for learning, memory, and spatial navigation. The hippocampus is critical for the formation of new memories. So also in post-traumatic stress, there's a smaller hippocampal volume. So they have the difficulty to learn new tasks. Especially, I would like to mention something about our education system. So hippocampus involves in learning and memory. But our education system, school education system especially, the teachers, they use old tactics like bringing fear, inducing fear, and fear tactics. So once the student is subjected to fear tactics, he goes into survival mode, and hippocampus shuts down, and the learning process is not fruitful. I think this message should go to the Sri Lankan education authorities. So hypothalamus is the region of the brain controls mood, thirst, hunger, and temperature. So you can see the human brain, the major anatomical structures. So we know that brain structure and brain chemistry impact human behavior. For instance, in serial murderers, they recently found there are altered brain structure, and they have the change of certain brain chemicals. So for their erroneous behavior is triggered by these abnormalities of the brain and abnormalities in this brain chemistry. So Dr. Carl Sagan once stated that there's a human, horse, and a crocodile inside us. So we all know that as human, we are we have that warmth, we have that empathy, and at the same time, we are very territorial, like crocodile. So neurons are the fundamental unit of the nervous system. And these are the synapses where the transmission of nervous impulses occur. So we know that nervous system has 2 main parts. One is the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, then the peripheral nervous system. So you see the division, nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system is divided into somatic and autonomic. So the autonomic nervous system has sympathetic and parasympathetic parts. So autonomic nervous system is a component of the peripheral nervous system that regulates involuntary physiologic processes, including heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, digestion, and sexual arousal. So sympathetic system controls our fight or flight responses, and it activates in stress. So when we are under stress, there is sympathetic activation is more pronounced. And parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the body's rest and digestion response when the body is relaxed, resting, or feeding. So the meditators have parasympathetic activation. The human mind is built on the physical scaffolding of the brain. And brain alone is not responsible for mind. So mind does not end in the brain, and brain is the linkage between mind and body. So what is the theory of mind? Theory of mind is the ability to attribute mental states to self and others in order to understand and predict behavior. It involves the distinction between the real world and mental representations of the world. When I use the word mental representation, it's very tricky. So are we living in a simulation like in the movie Matrix? So we don't know whether we are living in a one universe or we are in a multiverse, or it's what's inside. Like we all, the world that we see it's inside our head. It's our own perception. But the question arises whether it's the real world, it's the authentic world that we experience. So mind is a set of cognitive faculties, including consciousness, perception, thinking, judgment, and memory. So what is the mind-brain connection? So the brain refers to the machine made of neurons and glia, and mind refers to the product of that machine, including conscious thought, as well as emotions, perceptions, and unconscious thought. So the mind is the manifestations of thought, perception, emotion, determination, memory, and imagination that take place within the brain. So mind is like a storehouse. Right? In the storage, you find a lot of information, your past experiences, your traumatic experiences. Sometimes some of the information you have forgotten, but it's stored there. And time to time, it comes into surface. So mind is the space and time in which thought and feelings exist. And some consider mind as pure vibrating energy, because you remember the string theory. So finally, everything is like sort of strings, like vibrating energy. So mind is responsible for one's thoughts and feelings, intellect and consciousness, perception, memory, emotion, will, and imagination, including all unconscious cognitive processes. What is the organ of mind? So here I want to highlight the prefrontal cortex is the organ of mind, because it makes us unique. It makes us civilized human beings. The prefrontal cortex is the personality center that makes us uniquely human. So I have seen a lot of patients with TBI, traumatic brain injury, damage to the prefrontal cortex. They have decreased empathy, short-term memory loss or amnesia, poor decision-making skills, personality changes, difficulty with planning and organization, inflexibility and stubbornness, and limited attention. So we know that mind is supreme. We can develop mind skills because a lot of neuroscientists indicate that with meditation and other mental tasks, you can improve your mind power, like the memory and other cognitive abilities. So the other question is mind and the paranormal activities. Some say that using mind power, you can do various things. For instance, one time Uri Geller, he claimed that he can bend metal spoons using mind power. But after the scientific investigations, it was proved that Geller was a charlatan. So he used certain chemicals to bend these metals, and it was not due to his mental power. And some say that levitation is possible through meditation. No, still there is no specific evidence, and still nobody has proven that. So before winding up my lecture, I would like to highlight a few words from The Telltale Brain, written by the neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran. He says, how can a 3-pound mass of jelly that you can hold in your palm imagine angels, contemplate the meaning of infinity, and even question its own place in the cosmos? With the arrival of humans, it has been said the universe has suddenly become conscious of itself. This is truly, it's the greatest mystery of all. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. So if you have any questions, we can continue this discussion. Thank you very much.
Hi, Dr. Jatanga.
Yeah.
Hi, okay. My name is Shanali. So I have one question to ask you.
Yes,
This is
Shanali.
yes, so with regards to that one slide where you spoke about the fact that consciousness basically ceases to exist after death, correct?
Yeah.
So can consciousness be considered energy?
Yes, but being said that, because I mentioned two of my mentors,
Yes.
like Professor Guy Bernard and Professor Carlo Fonseca, even though, but it's not the final verdict, but this is what I found, because I asked this question from various people. So the concrete answer I got from them is the consciousness doesn't exist after our biological death. But after, because some people face brain death, like the near-death experiences, but which is reversible sometimes. And after once the process is being reversed, they gain their cognitive abilities, they gain their memory. But after biological death, up to date, what the scientific community consider that consciousness doesn't exist. So your second question, whether the consciousness is an energy. Of course, we all energy. I'm energy, you are energy. Everything in this universe is energy.
Correct. So in that case, so given that everything is energy, can energy actually be destroyed and can energy actually cease to exist? Or is it just transferred to another form or like something like that?
My personal belief is, yes, energy cannot be destroyed, or energy can. So therefore, I think it transfers. I think transformation occurs from that energy. It goes into either the form of temperature, form of other type of energy. So all this energy is the prevail, but not in the original form.
Correct. Understood. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Any other questions? It's okay. If you want, you can send as a message.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My question is this. What advice you would give for a person, like, for example, if a person is studying abroad in a country and his family is in a war zone, let's say, so he is constantly in that, the thoughts. So his brain is like what you explained, when there is stress, you said the hippocampus shuts off the learning. So in his situation, so if he is always thinking about that and he is in that mode, and but he is also studying in his current life, he has to do this. So he is like between two. He is caught between these two states. The where his family is, because his thoughts are there, and he has to concentrate on his life here also. So what kind of so in that state, what can you advise him for to go on with life in a natural way?
As
Thank you.
as I understood correctly, it's mainly the mind wandering. Yes, 47% of our lifetime we go into mind wandering, and we are not focused. We are not connected to the present moment. So when we study or when we perform a task, sometimes we do the task, but our mind is elsewhere, and so there's no unified connection. And in meditation, actually, what they proposed is there are 200 types of meditation, and what is the rationale? What is the main essence is to be in the present moment. So if you are in the present moment, you are in a protective capsule. Even stress, anxiety, or depression can't harm you because you are fully focused. So while you are studying and we are in a different country, you are thinking about other events, and it's like you are not putting your entire concentration to the task. So this is which is normal, like we are multitasking, and also we are capable of doing that. And most of the time, like as I said, like 47%, there's mind wandering. But in trauma, sometimes it happens in a higher extent. So we call it dissociation. Sometimes they dissociate and they forget the present moment, they forget the present situation, and sometimes they go into dissociation, and we call it pathological dissociation. It's sometimes they forget their identities and act in a very, very bizarre, strange way. Any other
Ruhan,
clarification?
can I? Ruhan, sorry.
Yes, sir. Our psychiatrist, Upali Piri, you are most welcome.
Yeah. Yes. I'm Upali. Upali, Dr. Upali Piri, I'm a psychiatrist. Now, I was listening very with enthusiasm what you are just delivering, and as a scientist or somebody who believes on science, I believe the mind is a term which you giving a total functioning of the brain. Brain is a physical thing, right?
Yeah.
But this mind has so many definitions, as we said in the beginning. The religious definitions. This is nothing against of any religion, not criticizing. But if you listen to these Buddhist monks who talk about this Gandhabba state and blah blah blah. I mean that these are the concepts people have made rather than actually. This is what I feel. So they are giving certain terms or processes which they describe the mind is existent after the death, which I totally disagree. I don't believe once you, as you said, this energy, what we have, energy is really broken into a variety of sub systems. And when we are also pulverized to carbon, hydrogen, oxygen once the body is buried, or if it's burnt, and then the ashes will remain. So there's nothing else. But this particular mind has the mind, as I said, the term mind, which is a concept, as but we just said, so but that is very helpful in describing our day-to-day life and adapting to environment effectively. This is all what you should think of. Other than that, people are getting scared. Your mind goes and you're getting to a different body, right? Because the stories that you get, the reincarnation, about the people who have born and they are talking about their previous births and under hypnosis, they are going to the state of the previous birth. Those things will make people, to have a different, entirely different perspective of what happens to the mind. Now, I just want to ask you about, just tell us a couple of words about the stories which come from, the rebirth, the people who talk about, right? And I have seen there some the Western nationals who are, maybe they call themselves scientists. They've written books about about these things. Rohan, would you like to just highlight that?
Yeah, with pleasure, Dr. Pires. Actually, I think last year I conducted a presentation to the Canadian Spiritual Association that was headed by Dr. Chandi Jayawardena, and I did a whole presentation of reincarnation and its scientific aspect. Actually, this concept of transmigration of the human soul or human psyche or the spirit, you can name it, you can call it whatever the word you like. It's not a scientific concept yet. As you said, there were a lot of Western researchers, starting from Dr. Ian Stevenson, and later Dr. Brian Weiss. They did a lot of research, especially Dr. Ian Stevenson. He came to Sri Lanka and he investigated a number of reincarnation cases, like children telling about their previous birth. So we tend to get an idea, our consciousness sort of transforming. It goes to another person, like the computer, the hardware destroys or hardware dies, but the software, the memory and other parts can be transformed into another body or to another computer. So first of all, I would like to tell that Dr. Ian Stevenson made huge errors because he was biased in his research work. And also now they have revisited his major cases. So he has written a book, 20 cases, which the suggestive of reincarnation. I don't specifically remember the title, but he made huge errors. He was confirmation biased, and also he used translators. It was not from the first-hand information, and sometimes the translators did not give him the correct answers. Like, they were biased too. So one example I'll give you from Sri Lanka, it's the famous case of Gnanatilaka. I don't know whether you heard of this Gnanatilaka case which was done by one Dr. Nisanka. And so actually, there were a lot of misinterpretations. Even Abraham Cole questioned this case study. And we know all these reincarnation cases from Sri Lanka are exaggerated by the media. Sometimes even the researchers, they try to exaggerate it to confirm their point. With regard to Brian Weiss, he's a psychiatrist, he's a famous psychiatrist. He's using hypnosis. And then he claims that we lived many lives. I think he wrote a famous book, which I have forgotten. So there he mentions about number of case studies where he did the hypnosis, and the patients came with different previous identities. And famous case is Brian Murphy. I think this case was done some time ago, not by Brian Weiss, but by, I think, Mary Bronstein. So what eventually found was their childhood experiences. So our childhood experiences are sort of deposited inside our mind. So in the hypnotic trance, these things come out. That's what happened to Brian Murphy, because she had an Irish nanny when she was small, and the nanny used to recite some Irish poems. So under the hypnotic trance, she started talking, she started telling about these age-old Irish stories, and the person named Brian Murphy. So, which is a very common name in Ireland. But eventually, it was found that there was no scientific evidence. It's only the repressed childhood memories that emerged. So, as you mentioned, yeah, still there's no scientific evidence what happens after death, either whether we are transformed or our consciousness goes to another body. This Gandhabba concept, I think one Sri Lankan priest, I think Henpita Nyanasi, monk, I think he mentioned about this. So it's sort of like a interval period before the birth. And recently I wrote whether we can explain reincarnation via quantum physics. I can share that article. So in quantum physics, because sometimes scholars try to explain reincarnation and the transformation of these our consciousness after our death using quantum physics, but still those are like theories. Nothing is 100% certain, nothing is proved yet. So we don't know what happens. It's an enigma.
Thank you, Dr. Ruan. There's also a question in the chat that says, so what is the role of the subconscious mind in manifestation, and how does it influence our thoughts, feelings, and behavior?
Yeah, because actually from birth, our memories, we collect memories. It's stored and in amygdala, in hippocampal region. So our emotional memories are stored. And sometimes we are unaware of that. That's why Freud highlighted our unconscious mind. So sometimes a thing occurred maybe 25, 30 years ago, and we have no recollection. But after 25, maybe 30 or 50 years time, you face similar event or any event. It could be traumatic or it could be an happy event that triggers the previous memory. So all of a sudden that memory pops up. And definitely it affects our behavior, because sometimes the childhood trauma affects our present behavior, and it's unconsciously. We don't know, and we cannot still see the connection between our childhood trauma and our present behavior, how it affects our personality, how it affects our thought process, how it affects our moral behavior, etc. So it's a huge thing, but because the human mind is the biggest enigma, it's the biggest mystery that we are still discovering. Any other questions?
Sir, how can you explain the inborn talents and different personality types and the varied of intelligence of people through psychology? It is like all genetics and environmental, how it varied among people in the same backgrounds.
Yeah, actually, those who are for the reincarnation, they mention about various child prodigies, like Mozart. He composed his music when he was 7 years old, and there are some children who speak French, Spanish, Russian, where they didn't have any exposure, and sometimes the children have higher cognitive skills. And how do they acquire this knowledge, how they got? It's not from the present life. Maybe it came from the past. So this is their question. And again, I'm not biased. I'm telling you the both sides. So those who oppose reincarnation, they highlight that sometimes children born with different brain structures, different neural connections. Sometimes they have high intelligence because of this neural morphology. So if you take a person like Ramanujan, he was a mathematician and he had extensive knowledge, and even he didn't know where that knowledge came from. He thought that it came from one goddesses called Namagiri. That was his interpretation because he was a Hindu. But today you see human calculators, little children, they can do a lot of math. They do a lot of higher calculation, even you and I cannot imagine. So we have to understand that we all born different, and we have different neural connections. Some neural connections are very powerful, like the physical body. Some people born with very strong physique. They have very strong muscle mass. They have very strong bone structure. And similarly, this is biology, this is environment. So sometimes children born with these capabilities, and they can extract this information very soon, and they adapt to their environment. So that's why I said it's unconscious. It's like a language. It's like a modulation. It's like data that we are analyzing. So these people may be having different morphological system, different neural connections. So they get the ability to speak or obtain different cognitive skills. So this is like I showed you the both sides. Those who say that these skills came from the previous life, the past life, indicating that consciousness sort of it transfers. But those who oppose indicate that it's not the consciousness, it's always there. It was inbuilt because the person had that capability. So still we don't know. There are a lot of research taking place, but still it's very inconclusive. Still we don't have very, very concrete, specific answer for that.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, sir.
There are several questions also on the chat. I will direct to you. Nowadays, many people are talking about sending thoughts to the subconscious mind and programming it using techniques such as repetition of words, affirmations, and visualization. What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of these techniques?
Could you repeat your question?
Basically, they're asking about subconscious programming through affirmation and visualization.
Yeah, this you mean NLP programs? Yeah, you know, there are no limitations for our mind. Like we don't know what is our mind's capability. Earlier, there was an erroneous concept that said we are only using 5% of our brain energy or brain capability, but some deny that concept. But yet, still we don't know what we are capable of. And still we are evolving, and still we undergo the process of evolution. After millions of years, we got our neocortex, and now the evolution is happening within the prefrontal cortex, especially the left prefrontal cortex, which is for the positive messages, positive mental tasks. So maybe within another 10,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000 years, if we don't destroy our planet and live peacefully, we might achieve higher cognitive abilities. So these methods you mentioned, it's sort of evoking our mind. It sort of evoking the hidden energy. So, and still we are using the old school methods for teaching, but now the investigators, the researchers now, they find a lot of things about the brain and brain's capabilities in the learning process. And you can provide more data to your human, to the mind using different types of NLP techniques. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I think within another 50 to 100 years time, we will see a lot of changes.
I think a couple more questions, Dr. Duan, and I will direct them to you. How do emotions influence our thoughts and behaviors, and what role does emotional regulation play in manifesting?
Those areas are vital for emotion regulation. So specifically, I will tell you what happens in pathology. When, let's say, a soldier, he faces a traumatic battle event, he sees his friends get killed, or he faces a near-death experience, but he's not physically harmed. I had a number of patients who encountered this type of events. I'll tell you one specific event. There was an officer who witnessed the death of 7 soldiers. They perished in front of his eyes following an artillery fire. But this officer was not physically harmed. He was not wounded. But it affected his psyche, it affected his cognition. He immediately went into sort of amnesia, and he doesn't remember how he was brought to Colombo from the north. And these traumatic events sometimes trigger us. It's sort of, we call it trauma is profoundly written inside. It's being recorded. Sometimes, if it's overwhelming, we try to repress that. And even though we repress that, unconsciously it pops up. It comes up as either like scary dreams or scary thoughts or intrusive memories or flashbacks. So emotional memory is very, very powerful because it connected with emotions. It's not like a sort of a very neutral event. It's always go hand to hand with either positive or negative memory. So it's being deeply deposited in our memory system, and we can recall it. Sometimes people very vividly recall some of these events that occurred maybe 50 years ago, 25 years ago. So that's the power of emotional memory.
There is also another question. Okay. Sanjay is asking, can the amygdala be controlled by other parts of the brain?
Yeah, because you know the brain lateralization. If any trauma happens, the brain has capability of this brain lateralization. So sometimes when you see the left side of the brain is being damaged, some of the functions are gradually taken over by the right side. Still we don't know whether the amygdala is 100% answerable, or whether other parts of the human brain, maybe the insula, maybe other brain regions. But specifically, we know that when a psychological trauma happens, these brain areas being hugely affected, especially the hippocampal region and the amygdala. So we see in trauma, the shrinking of the hippocampal region, because it's firing a lot of neurons continuously, 24/7. It's like a vehicle. The engine is sort of on and it's working. So you can see the decay, you can see these neurons and constantly firing. So these trauma can alter the brain, just like the brain plasticity. And so what happens is there are a lot of morphological changes. There are anatomical changes are happening inside amygdala and other brain regions, especially in hippocampal region. So we can see the functional changes, we can see the organic changes, and also it changes brain chemistry. And especially in PTSD, they have this the cortisol level is taking place, and also formation of different types of protein have been found in their blood, especially in chronic PTSD and in CPTSD, which we call malignant PTSD, or also known as DESNOS, disorder of extreme stress not otherwise specified.
Ruan, can I add a little bit to that? The person who just talked about the amygdala regulation. Definitely, yes. The amygdala is a place where emotions, especially the anger, where the generates, and the fear, both.
Yeah.
Right, and the connection to the amygdala from hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex are really significant in people who have emotional discontrol syndrome or episodic discontrol syndrome. Marcia Feva, who was investigating that. Now, one of the interesting examples is in Russian circus. You see these bears, tigers, and blah blah, animal with very high ferocity. They are just tamed. This is done by yttrium bullets are implanted into amygdala. They do it neurosurgically procedure. They put yttrium implants. So the amygdala get damaged and they are no more fearful. They don't bite you. You can put your head inside the lion's head. So this is where the amygdala's main role as a fear and the response to the fight-flight response is really originate from these circuits, the Papez circuits and other circuits which goes through amygdala. So that is so it's highly regulated through the neural circuits. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, psychosurgery is very common. I think it's gonna be the next thing we're gonna develop, especially inserting specific these
yttrium bullets,
yeah.
the radioactive bullet.
Yeah. And let's say, I mean, in simple words, you can say that you insert a small SIM in the hippocampal region, and you can sort of inculcate like higher learning functions. I think it started with lobotomy, and now it's not being practiced. And this breaking the connection between left and the right brain hemisphere. If you have seen the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's the same thing. Like even a ferocious or very, very violent person, you can turn into a zombie. And we know in our practice sometimes giving a lot of ECT, the patients, they lose their immediate short-term memory. And I think in 1940s there is a research done by some US scientists. So they found certain personality changes in these ailments. So of course, like you can, it's vice versa. Like you can convert a monk into a serial murderer, or the other way, like you can get a person like Harold Shipman or like the Red Ripper, and do some psychosurgery and then convert him into a like a hermit, like non-aggressive person. I think in the future, sometimes our justice system, they might adapt these methods, but still, in 1950s, they used the chemical castrations. So I don't know the ethics of this type of research, but indeed it's happening. It's like in the circuses, they use a lot of chemicals. And we know that we had a private zoo somewhere in Ahungala, and they injected certain chemicals to decrease the aggressiveness of the animal. So yeah, so this could be highly unethical, but things change with with the society, and there are concepts of the beliefs and morality, etc.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. I think it's always a very good sign of an interesting lecture when we have continued questions that are being forwarded our way. Is it okay to take maybe one more question, Dr. Ron? Is that okay with you?
Sure. Please go ahead.
All right. Zaman asks, how does dopamine play a role in emotional memory? Are there any studies that demonstrate the effects of dopamine on emotional memory consolidation?
Yeah, because we know that dopamine and serotonin, those are like happy home chemicals. So it plays a key role in formation of memory. Now, if you recall any happy event that, let's say that for the first time you meet your girlfriend or your boyfriend, so it was a happy event, it was recorded in your mind. So these chemicals, and with with this interpretation, with this perception, there's a secretion of these happy hormones, and it gets entangled, and the memory is formed, and you can recall that. While you are recalling it, sometimes over and over, these chemicals start to secrete. And the other way, with trauma, also the same. Sometimes with trauma, it's the registration and conditioning of trauma. Here, what happens is conditioning of the happy event. So yes, indeed, these happy chemicals influence our brain. And it was known to people since the 18th century. As I mentioned, this Robert Louis Stevenson, he knew while he was using cocaine. And even the early days of Sigmund Freud, he thought like he found the magic bullet via cocaine. So he was not addicted to cocaine because he was not using it regularly. Like when he was going to a party, he used to take cocaine, and he found that he was very fulfilled. He had this euphoric feeling, and he got confidence. So one time he advised his girlfriend to use cocaine when they are having any sort of melancholic situation. Indeed, so with dopamine, with serotonin, it impacts our emotional memory. And also, these memories are stored in chemical forms, and it's large RNAs. So it's like the memory deposition. And we can retrieve that memory each time we want, or sometimes automatically it comes to our mind. It's again, I'm telling about the happy memories and the sad memories with anniversaries, and when we are meeting different people, when you are reading some event, and automatically it comes to your mind. So indeed, in amygdala, in hippocampal region, these memories are stored, and also these dopamine and other chemicals are associated with these memories. And there are a lot of research indeed. In present day, if you go to these research websites, you can find tons of research papers.
Thank you, Dr. Ron. I think
I would like to mention another thing. Like recently I read that now the conditions like autism, and those are they say that within another 50 to 75 years they can treat these conditions, even the memory loss, because you can implant a chip, you can implant a device that will help you to find your own soul, that will help you to find your own memory. And also in these autism and other pathological conditions. So they are suggesting like a very micro psychosurgery. And I think the next century, we can see a lot of changes in neuropsychiatry, neurosurgery. I mean, if we give the opportunity to live a few more decades.
Thank you, Dr. Ruan. I think we have taken up, our students have really forwarded questions, and the questions continue to come. Perhaps I could connect you and compile some of these questions and invite you back to the department, because I think you have really inspired some thinking processes of the participants today.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure. So if you have any questions, you can email me. And if you are interested in a few of my articles, because we discuss about the reincarnation and quantum mechanics, I can share that article with you. Actually, I have my blog, Transylvania. You can find that article because I write about various subjects. And also you can find some the humor stuff there, because I'm not like 24/7 committed to my scientific work or psychology work. So you can find some articles there. But if you are really interested, please email me, and I will send you these articles about reincarnation and the neuroscience, neuropsychology behind this reincarnation and déjà vu experience. And with children with the massive knowledge and ability to speak different languages. In fact, I think 6 months ago, one time I came to Sri Lanka, I think 6 or 8 months ago, and I met Professor Nalin De Silva, and we had a very discussion. You know, Professor Nalin is interested about this mind and matter, and he told me that there's a child he's from a rural village, and he speaks English. The parents, they don't speak English, and all of a sudden this child got the ability to speak in English very effectively. So the Professor Nalin's thought was, you know, he got this capability from his previous birth. But in neuropsychology, there are a lot of explanations. And, you know, Sri Lanka, the children, they listen to radio, they watch television and watch cartoons, and they grasp these words and these different languages. And also they have different morphological structure in their brain connections. It's not like average person. They they grasp, their neural connections are very, very robust. So they absorb knowledge very, very fast. So this is these are the secrets of our human mind. So that was my idea, but even though the Professor Nalin didn't agree, but we had a very friendly conversation about that. So actually, this inspired me to write these articles. So if you want, please email me. I can happily share that article with you.
Ruan, you are absolutely right. My son, we went to the UK to do my wife's attachment. And my son, who was, I think, about 4 years, he learned English by watching the BBC, CBBS. There's a program called CBBS or something, right? And he learned English from that. So after watching these cartoons, as you just mentioned, they grasp very quickly. And his accent was British, the BBC accent. At that time when he was there, when we were a family, it was so quick that they grasped the kids, the language skills, right? And then he spoke very fluently in English. Even now, subsequently, it was helpful for his subsequent studies. But I'm saying, I totally agree what you just said. Thank you, and very interesting. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Pires. Thank you. Yes, children, children have that capability, learning languages very quickly, unlike adults.
Thank you, Dr. Wan. I too had a thought. I also participated recently in this one lecture from Professor Alan Lightman from the MIT. And his lecture was also on the transcendental brain and spiritual experiences.
Mm.
And I suppose, his thinking was the same, that when we die, that consciousness will also die and will get distributed, when our body decays, will get distributed. But I think it's a matter of this sort of grim, realistic view that science has. And then the thinking that I'm wondering now, you also mentioned about the chakras and our sort of collective mind, So I'm wondering what are your thoughts on this being a collective, the consciousness persisting beyond physical existence being a collective delusion that's hardwired to give people hope and provide purpose so that they will keep to morality. I'm just thinking of these things while all these discussions were going on. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Ruan?
Yeah, I think it's, as I mentioned, it's like a grid. It's like the internet, and that existed for a long time. Like we share common knowledge.
Yeah.
So since the antiquity, we share common knowledge. We have these, these collective unconscious. I think sometimes we are hardwired with birth. So like one, I can give one instance, like sometimes the baby monkeys, they're afraid of serpents. Like, that without the fear induction, they are sort of hardwired. It comes with evolution. This is very intricate. This is very unique because our brain is a part of the evolution. So it stored information and the experiences that our ancestors gathered. It's in the back of my mind. I mean, I always tell these phrase like, 20 years ago, we were hunter-gatherers. We were not psychologists, we were not psychiatrists, we were not doctors, we were not engineers or teachers or whatever. We were hunters, we were savage hunters, we were fighting for our existence. So, and we sort of had the encounter with nature, and we saw serpents, we saw death and destruction. So with generation to generation, that knowledge was transformed, either in verbal form or written form, or sometimes neurological form. So that's what I said, like the baby monkeys, they have inbuilt fear for snakes. So probably they are hardwired. I mean, sometimes by birth we are hardwired. We have this acrophobia. We have a fear of spiders. We have fear of serpents.
Fear of heights. Fear of heights
Yeah,
also
fear of
the
heights.
same.
Yeah, indeed, fear of heights, because we were hunter-gatherers and we had to travel, like Homo sapiens. We traveled a long distance and we had to battle a lot of nature's hazards. So, like 20,000 years ago, my ancestor, who was a great hunter, what his experience are, it's a part of my collective unconscious. It's a part of, I mean, I've been hardwired. Maybe with DNA, with maybe, now we know that there's a cell memory. Even cells have memory. I can give you one example. Actually, once I went to Ottawa and I was talking to one of the professors, and he told me that, last night I had a steak and I had a weird dream, like sort of, I saw green grass. So in a way, like he didn't mention it straight away. Like, I mean, he ate this meat, and all of a sudden he was dreaming the green grass like a cow. Like, so yeah, I mean, this is weird. I know it's sometimes you can argue, you can sort of debunk these sort of statements, but it has certain there's certain truth behind that. And a long time ago, when I was working as an anesthetist in Chilau Hospital, the eye surgeon, I have forgotten his name. He's a very nice, educated gentleman, Dr. Kovartana Raja. He said once he ate 2 Delta toffees and he had this vivid dream, snakes. So he didn't believe that. And again, after some time, he consumed 2 Delta toffees before he went to sleep. And again, he had the same dream. So he says sometimes certain chemicals influence our inner thoughts, our higher consciousness. So it comes as dreams. I mean, it affects our memory storage. So it's very, very interesting. So that's why, it's not sort of a high powerful computer inside our heads. We all share, we all have these former memories, memories of our ancestors, and we breathe same air and we live under same sunlight and we share all these common knowledge. So this collective unconscious thing, it's very difficult to prove, it's very difficult to highlight, it's very difficult to indicate, but we know that something is there.
Thank you, Dr. Ruan. And I think we've had a number of questions and you've really taken your time and explained.
No worries.
And we really appreciate it. And I think what the department will do is if there are any further questions from students, we will gather them and perhaps invite you again or forward for your view and connect them with you and your blog as well. So the dialogue can keep continuing beyond today's lecture. So consider the time. Let me wind up this session by thanking you. It is really my privilege on behalf of the Department of Psychology and Counseling at the Open University of Sri Lanka to extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Ruan Jayatunga for your fantastic lecture on Mind Meets Matter, a biological perspective to psychology. Dr. Jayatunga, I think your lecture was both very informative and definitely thought-provoking, which we can see from the number of questions that have come our way. And also, I believe it's a testament when almost all participants who have joined the lecture remain to the very end, which demonstrates how interesting your lecture was. You have provided us with deep insights into the biological underpinnings of the psychological processes and have opened, I am sure, new avenues of understanding for all the participants here. The intricate connection between mind and matter, as you so eloquently presented, is a testament to the complex and fascinating nature of human psychology that has drawn all of us to the field. So on behalf of the entire department, I extend our sincere gratitude to you, Dr. Jayatunga, for sharing this invaluable knowledge, and your contribution to our academic community is highly appreciated. And I'm sure our students will have a lasting impact from today's discussion, both their academic and professional journeys. And I'm eager, and we are all eager from the department for our continued collaboration with you, and look forward for any future opportunities to learn from you and your very vast experience. So thank you again, Dr. Jayatunga. Your dedication to advancing field of psychology is truly commendable. And thank you also, a very warm thanks to all of the participants. We've also had esteemed psychiatrists who have also joined with us today. Let us all take the insights gained from Dr. Jayatunga's lecture and apply them in our continued pursuit for knowledge and understanding the field of psychology. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm so delighted. Thank you.
Thank you.